Hello and welcome to another standard video here in the Foundations metagame. Today I wanted to try out another deck built around Mossborn Hydra after having a lot of fun with it in my green ramp deck. This time we're playing it more in a +1/+1 counter deck instead, since adding more counters to the Hydra before doubling all of its counters with landfall can also be quite nice. And then of course we're still playing the full set of Llanowar Elves to let us play the Hydra on turn 2 already. And we're playing the full set of Bristly Bill, which also synergizes with landfall and +1 counters. So if we have both Bill and the Hydra, make sure to put the +1 counter from Bill on the Hydra before doubling everything. And if we get to 5 mana, Bill also has a nice activated ability, doubling the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature we control. Then another great card to combo with the Hydra is Ordeal of Nylea, a card I wasn't playing in my other green ramp deck. The Ordeal is at its best if our Hydra already has at least 2 +1 counters, then now it's enchanted, it attacks, gets a third counter, we get to sacrifice the Ordeal to search up 2 forest cards and put them on the battlefield tapped, which will then double the Hydra's counters twice, so that can get out of hand very quickly and potentially present lethal in a single attack. And then we've got additional ways to put counters on our team. Innkeeper's Talent at the beginning of each combat can also level it up to protect our creatures with counters, and eventually at level 3 can also double the counters that are placed on our permanents. We've got Ozolith, which will also give us an additional +1 counter each time, and can also activate it for 2 mana to put a +1 counter on one of our creatures, which will result in at least 2 +1 counters. And at 3 mana we're playing the Tumblewag, which similar to the Talent can also give us a +1 counter at the beginning of each combat, and if we saddle it by tapping a creature with at least 2 power, then when the Tumblewag attacks we can also double the number of +1 counters on a creature we control. It's also great, especially with some of our trampling creatures, such as the Hydra or the Pawpatch Recruit at 1 mana, which we can play early to apply some pressure, and then we can also play it with Offspring, making an additional 1/1 token version of it, and this can also give us more counters if the opponent tries to target our creatures. And then a Snakeskin Veil, a great way to protect our threats at instant speed from opposing spot removal, giving hexproof as well as a +1/+1 counter, is also quite synergistic. And then our mana base is playing a 26 lands total, which might seem like a lot for a deck that tops out at 3 mana, but that way we get to ensure that we keep hitting our land drops, which is important for landfall on Bristly Bill and the Hydra, and that way we're also more likely to be able to save Fabled Passage until turn 4 when it enters untapped, and we can double the Hydra's counters more reliably, so that's why we're playing this despite only playing a single color. And then a Crawling Barrens is another mana sink built into our mana base, can put 2 +1 counters on it and then turn it into a creature. Now do keep in mind, because we put the counters on the Barrens before it turns into a creature, it will not benefit from a card like Ozolith until it's already turned into a creature, at which point of course we can get additional counters on the Barrens, and we can also potentially activate it multiple times in the same turn should we have a lot of mana, so that's also where the extra lands from Ordeal of Nylea can come in handy. Since we do have the Barrens we can activate, Recruit with Offspring that can be played, and then both the Innkeeper's Talent and Ozolith also offering plenty of opportunities to spend additional mana. And yeah, then just 18 basic forests. So that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand's a little slow to get going, but we do have Ozolith setting up Hydra and then Ordeal. So it could still be a pretty fast clock depending on the matchup. Land 3 is good. Red-white, is it a burn deck or an aura deck? Challenger. So play Ozolith. And then yeah, if the Hydra can survive for 1 turn, it can grow incredibly large. Ethereal Armor's fine. Finds a Grand Abolisher, don't usually see that one. Opponent could play it. So that does kind of protect their creatures from instant speed removal, but that's not something we have. Does make our Snakeskin Veil less effective as well, since we can't protect in their turn when they could play Sheltered by Ghosts. Just gotta hope they don't have it. Scavenger's fine. And another one. Take 3. They might be out of enchantments. Okay, another Hydra. So I guess we can Snakeskin Veil before playing a land, and then play Ordeal for maximum damage. Attack, trigger. Get 2 more lands. And our creature's got hexproof. And that's 47 damage with trample. Our opponent's gonna try to block. What is this? Just Shard Mage's Rescue, that's fine. Get some +1 counters, but turns out we've got a little bit more than lethal. So yeah, you don't need much for this Hydra to win the game. Just an Ozolith, an Ordeal, and an extra +1 counter. And there we have it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand's a little top-heavy, but I'll keep it. And then I already have to decide whether to fetch with Fabled Passage turn 1. I think I save it. We are playing 26 lands after all, so we can try and save Fabled Passage to enable the Hydra's landfall. Opponent black-green. Alright, let's hope this works out. Opponent's got a Lunar Elves on 2. And looks like they might have a cut down in hand as well. Alright, did not draw a land sadly, so no 3-drop on curve. Although they both would have died to a cut down. So maybe this ends up working out. Good Snakeskin Veil would give us 2 counters, that's probably worth it. Just to keep the extra mana available. And Red Knight's acceptable. And then I think we still hang on to Fabled Passage for now. So I can play Hydra. Play a land. Could fetch now. And then activate Ozolith. I guess I may as well. And hope they don't have an answer. Can only activate at sorcery speed, so couldn't bluff having another Snakeskin Veil. Opponent has a Terra Sunder, but at least it cost him 4 mana. And we've got a few more heavy hitters. Tumblewag plus Bill. Counters on... Next turn I can saddle the Tumblewag with another copy, so maybe Bill itself. A Ritual Chamber making a 6/6, that's fine. And another Snakeskin Veil. That one seems worth keeping available. So let's say we play Tumblewag. We get 2 triggers, that's 4 +1 counters total. Then, if we want to double the counters with Tumblewag, it is going to get eaten by the demon, but it would leave us with a huge Bristly Bill. The problem is, our opponent can just kind of indefinitely keep jumping with a Dread Knight. So it might be better for me to actually trade for the demon. In which case, maybe it is just activate Ozolith. So I can make Tumblewag a 6/6 and Bill a 6/6. And then still double, I guess, the Tumblewag's counters. So we might see them trade for Bill and then chump the Tumblewag. Nope, opponent keeps their demon in play. Now with this line we're not keeping up Snakeskin Veil, which could hurt, but we'll see. Next turn I also have the option of activating Bill for 5, which could be pretty good. Opponent with an Annex now. Can draw them a card. And ×2, so they are tapped out, even though they get to gain 4. They were actually close to taking me out with Demon and Dread Knight attacking, but now with a land we should have it one way or another. Or at least force them to lose both creatures. So let's say I go Forests on Tumblewag, and then go to attackers, and then, yeah, the plan is probably going to be to activate Bill, so even the Llanowar Elves could attack. And then even the 2 smallest creatures going through is still going to present lethal. Awesome. So yeah, we had some interesting back and forth, but eventually the +1 counters beat out the demons. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand is fine. Facing black-red. So we're looking at Recruit into either Bill or Ozolith. Since we have double Bill, might be okay to run one out. I see opponent on a more aggressive Goblins deck. Yeah, I think I still like playing Bill. Could even consider trading for the Goblin. Could have also traded with a Recruit if I keep it back. So, yeah. See if this works. They did enable raid for future creatures. And now a fear of missing out. Snakeskin Veil the draw. Does that change my play? Otherwise, Tumblewag looked good as a 3-mana play. Bill is still going to be great if we draw another land, so we can go Bill, play a land, play another 2-drop. But there's a few ways we can play it. Yeah, getting Tumblewag going early still seems fine. And then next turn I might be able to saddle it with Bill. Opponent takes a trade. If they also have removal for Tumblewag, we have to be very careful about not trading away Bill. It's going to be the Artist next, does have Death Touch. Alright, so can stick to the plan for now. And then, yeah, I'm not really incentivized to trade for the Artist. I may as well go for Talent this turn, so maybe next turn I can level it up already. And hang back. So finding another trample creature could be useful. Artist attacks, I'll take it. Don't mind losing some life. But it's gonna sacrifice Artist. And a Final Vengeance, a 1-mana answer to the Tumblewag. Okay. Anything else? Uh-oh. Looks like Bill might eat another answer. Final Vengeance, number 2. Okay, so now we're down to Crawling Barrens. I guess Llanowar Elves helps. And then I'll still have Snakeskin Veil for protection. So yeah, opponent definitely more of a sacrifice deck. I'm gonna keep up Veil over leveling up the talents. Braids is fine. Opponent's down to 1 card in hand as well. Could see them sacrifice a land to maybe draw. Still value my lands more, I think. And Fabled Passage, missing a landfall to go with it now. Could animate the Crawling Barrens as well, so we do have some options. Let's say we animate our creature lands and go to attackers. And then put 2 more counters on it with a talent. Now the reason it only has 2 counters instead of 3 is that it's not quite a creature at the time when it gets the counters, since it gets counters first and then turns into a creature. So hit you with a 6/6, safely turns back into a land. And now Alicia. Can get back a Fear of Missing Out, I guess. Pretty good when empty-handed, since it just draws a card. And our opponent's got chump blockers for the Crawling Barons. So yeah, they've got some pretty nice engine going. Paw Punch Recruit can help us go wide, perhaps. Yeah, can't really afford to keep attacking and let them enable raid. Although, I guess they can do so regardless. And then enable Fear of Missing Out. Yeah, this is a problem. I guess it is just Recruit with Offspring for now. And then we could still activate Ozolith. No attacks. Gonna keep the elf back on defense. Forge is eventually gonna be a problem. Lets them enable raid for free as well. So yeah, Forge triggers twice. And get back your Fear of Missing Out. And Sprinter. Okay, so unless we top deck something useful here, we're slowly just gonna die. Snakeskin Veil. So at least we have some tramplers now. So if I level up talent twice, I can still cast a Snakeskin Veil. Let's see what happens. No blocks. And that's 12 exactly. Oof. So got there just in time before the opponent's engine could fully take over. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand seems keepable. Can play the elves and then play Bill before playing a land for turn. Facing a mouse deck. Ooh, Hydra was an excellent draw. Turn 2 Hydra into Bristly Bill is kind of the dream. Just missing an Ordeal of Nylea. And I guess I'll take a Snakeskin Veil just to feel safe. Opponent is red-white after all. And a GT. Pretty good. At least it's not the original GT that can give -1/-1. But still a great way to enable Valiant each turn. Alright, so hoping the Hydra survives. And then we've got a lot of ways to add counters to it, between Bill and Ozolith. Our opponent did save up their charge counters, so they can maybe untap land several times. Might of the Meek for starters, that's fine. Yeah, if we draw Ordeal of Nylea, we could just win next turn between Bill and the Ordeal, giving us more counters and additional landfall triggers. Otherwise, it's probably going to take 2 more attacks. For now, take 4. Village unable to cast any non-creature spells. And there's the Ordeal. Do we actually get to do it here? There's still the possibility that our opponent can untap lands and do something strange and make sure to resolve Bill's trigger before the Hydra, so we get a +1 counter and then double. And let's see if we can go for a turn 3 kill with quite a bit of damage to spare. Go to attackers. And then once again resolve Bill's triggers first. So it's automatically in the right order. Go to 6, go to 7, go to 14, go to 28. Sorry for spoiling it here. Alright. Got anything? And there we have it, on turn 3 no less. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand's fine. Turn 1 Elves sets up either turn 2 Tumblewag or a Recruit with Offspring, facing the red deck. Could use more sources of +1 counters, because now we kind of rely on Recruits and our opponent cooperating. Opponent's got a turn 2 Manifold Mouse to follow up turn 1 Hero, so they've got their perfect start. Taking 4. Although there's our ideal turn 2 play, Mossborn Hydra. Although we're kind of lacking more ways to enhance it next turn. So we might still be a turn 2 slow, and being on the draw especially. And looks like they might have an answer. Shock is good enough. And now Monstrous Rage is ideal when you already have your double strike engine going, so this might be a turn 3 kill, or close to it. So now best I can do is Tumblewag and Recruit, but a double striking hero is still gonna get us. So yeah, not much we could do here, being on the draw especially against Reds with this start. But yeah, that's the downside of a green deck without removal. And now Screaming Nemesis as well. GG's. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, and no creature means a mulligan. This we can try. So we're looking at Recruits. Into Tumblewag, facing the red-white tokens deck. This hand is probably not going to be fast enough to win before Sunfall happens. Squel's Hive at least will cost him some life. And now Bristly Bill. Still prefer Tumblewag here, I think. And then the Trampler is a little bit more valuable to pump. And then next turn we can maybe play Bill, saddle the Tumblewag to double the counters on Recruit. At 4 toughness it survives a Lightning Helix. Opponent just playing Enduring Innocence. Good combo with Squel's Hive, although a little slow to get going. And land was a good draw. So we'll stick to the plan here, I think. Playing a second Tumblewag, also reasonable. Now we could level up the talent instead. And then I guess we'll have to do some math. If I Snakeskin Veil before attackers, and get this to 5 counters, 6 with Innkeeper's Talent. Yeah, then I don't think it matters how our opponent blocks. And we even get one more from the Tumblewag, of course. So 7 counters up to 14. 16 power trample. And there's only so much our opponent can throw in front of it. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand could use an extra land or 2, but I'll still try it. Feels like a waste to play Fabled Passage when we have Bristly Bill in hand. But I'll maybe still get the tap land out of the way, so we can prioritize either Talent or Bill on 2. Opponent blue-black. Another recruit, so now I'm kind of liking double recruit instead. Also Lith is the draw, so we'll try the talents. And a Bitter Triumph will take it out. At least he'll get some +1 counters out of it. And our opponent seems to be a Squirming Emergence, a Reanimator deck, playing white as well, maybe for Atraxa. Prankster finds another Triumph, although we will have Snakeskin Veil available potentially. Alright, now we could go Bill into Fabled Passage. And then maybe keep Fabled Passage available for next turn, assuming they take out the recruits. This may not be a game where we actually get to deploy the Hydra. So Bitter Triumph again. And play a Prankster. So they do have a chum blocker. Yeah, maybe I can be convinced to fetch here, and then we'll see if we want to play the Hydra or take a different approach. Ordeal of Annihilia. Now that's a good card too. Although if we play Hydra, then Ordeal is pretty much game over next turn. Whereas now we're kind of lacking Trample. So yeah, I'll play the Hydra. Quick permanent count here. Opponent does have 4 permanents, but they'll have a 5th one if they chump with a Prankster. So I do potentially run into the Sweeper Terror Tide, wiping my board, which would also sweep up the Hydra. I'm just not going to play around it. But if they have it, we'll need an extra creature. It's going to be a Whale of the Forgotten. Just digging for answers. And yeah, if we get to untap with Ordeal and Snakeskin Veil, we'll have additional protection. And another Snakeskin Veil, so we'll move in. And our opponent explodes. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We've got both Bill and Hydra. Question is what to do with Fabled Passage. Since we have multiple 2-drops, I think it's okay to save the Fabled Passage. And then playing it a turn slow to protect Hydra with Snakeskin Veil could also be worth it. Opponent on Cats. Okay. Still gonna favor Bill, I think. So if they're on Cats, they may not have a ton of removal. Helpful Hunter draws a card, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I could play the turn slow, just to make sure Hydra's protected by the Veil. But what removal is Cat's gonna play, outside of just some random 1 or 2 mana answers in white? I think it's worth it to just get the Hydra going as soon as possible, because, yeah, the Cat deck can also present some big threats if they play their Legend next turn, for instance. And then I'll keep Bill back on defense, since the 3 damage is relatively unimportant. Blocking the lines could matter. Interesting. What does this imply? Maybe an Elspeth's Smite would make sense. In which case I'll just take it. And it's going to be a Sky Hunter next, keeping up white mana for a Vanguard. Which they could have played first main phase, so clearly implies that they did have some instant speed removal. Alright, now we need to think about our sequencing. So it's definitely going to be Fabled Passage. Talent, I guess, we can play. And then I probably want to Snakeskin Veil the Hydra before playing Fabled Passage. So let's do the math. Play Snakeskin Veil up to 2 counters. Then Talent is not going to trigger yet. Fabled Passage up to 3 from Bill. Double to 6. Fetch probably after we get the Talent trigger. So we go to 7, then 8, 16. So I don't think it's going to be quite lethal here, sadly. But we shouldn't die on the way back. So that probably means I keep Snakeskin Veil in hand as opposed to immediately casting it here. And then we shouldn't be at a risk of dying. And then I'm probably better off saving the Fabled Passage until next turn. Although I guess it's kind of close. Yeah, I guess I'm fine just doing it now. And then I can level up the Talent, keep up Veil. And then now we don't really need Bristly Bill anymore, so it could block. Vanguard triggers. Probably see that Elspeth Smite now. Ooh, Claws out, I see. Pumping the team also makes sense. So we take 11. That was actually pretty close. If we hadn't blocked, we die. But now, yeah, just play a land, double up to 24, get maybe Talent to level 3 first. So, yeah, if we actually do the math, get this to level 3, then play a land. So we would double the counters, which is 12, but instead it's 24. So now we've got a 36, 36, and I could still maybe throw Snakeskin Veil into the mix in response to the landfall trigger to maximize our damage. So a little bit of damage to spare. Okay, we're on the play. We've got a pretty nice curve. Question is whether to play Recruit on 1 and whether or not to save the Fabled Passage. I'm playing 26 lands in this deck to avoid having to play Fabled Passage early, so I'm gonna stick to that. Although next turn we can maybe recalibrate if we're about to miss another land. Turn 1 Heartfire Hero out of the red deck and another Recruit to draw. Do I play Bill? Do I just go Recruit Fabled Passage? Against the red deck, they could certainly have some burn spells to finish off a 1/1 Hydra. So maybe this is a game where we play Tumblewag first. Alright, I guess we'll play it this way. And then we should be okay turning this into a race. Also, if our opponent has a turn 2 Manifold Mouse, it's not like we'll have great blocks available. Looks like it's more of an aura deck. So expect fewer burn spells, but they will have Sheltered by Ghosts, which is very good if they have it. It's going to be a Scavenger for now. And a Monstrous Rage. So wouldn't be able to block here. Take 6. And Ordeal of Nylea would be great to go with the Hydra. So I think we're committing, as opposed to playing Tumblewag first, since we're on a real clock from the Hero and Scavenger combo. And then we just gotta hope they don't have the Sheltered by Ghosts. The Hydra doesn't seem like a particularly big threat, and it probably isn't unless we draw another land to go Bill, land, Ordeal. It's gonna be another Scavenger, so they could still play Sheltered. And yeah, looks like that's unfortunate. And yeah, can't expect him not to exile the Hydra. So this game seems over. I'll double up the counters on one recruit, so it can maybe trigger Ordeal. But this is not a race we're winning, especially without a land. So yeah, there's also Tramples, so there's no way we're setting up a good block. So I think this game's just over. So sure, we'll just go out with Ordeal, I guess. Attack, sacrifice. So without an extra land, the Hydra also wouldn't have been lethal here. Can see if Bill into a land would have done it. Hydra to 2 counters, double to 4. Then Ordeal, 2 Bill triggers to 6, to 12 to 24. So yeah, a land might have done it if we went Bill into Ordeal, but sadly wasn't meant to be. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand has some very nice potential with Ordeal, Hydra, and Veil to protect. Problem is getting to that point without dying first. Ideally find something to do before turn 3, but I'll still give it a shot. And opponent on what looks to be a Lizard deck, another Ordeal. So Lizards will have some removal. Turn 2 Gav, so that's an aggressive start. I don't know if we have really time to wait on turn 4. Also, if we don't draw a 4th land, then I wouldn't be able to play Hydra with Veil backup anyway. So then I may as well commit. But yeah, with double Ordeal we can certainly set up a one-shot kill. Hired Claw is next. Yeah, I don't think we're getting 2 more turns. Although I did draw the land. So let's say I play Tumblewag. It triggers, it's a 4/4, so our opponent needs to spend removal to take it out. But then I still take 6, 7, let's say 8 with the Higher Claw trigger, 9 with Vine Lasher, I'm at 3. So then even if I play Hydra with Veil backup, it's going to be too late. So then my best hope is just play Hydra, hope they don't have removal or don't feel threatened by it. And then double Ordeal could steal it out of nowhere. But hopes are not very high. If they had a less aggressive start, maybe we can afford to take a different approach. Vine Lasher attacking is interesting. So do we suspect a pump spell like Monstrous Rage? 6, 7, 8 with Higher Claw getting a counter. So yeah, Monstrous Rage would be lethal if I take it. What would be the explanation otherwise? So yeah, I'm pretty much forced to block. Can't think of another 1 damage effect that they would be running. So we're at 5. And alright, that makes sense. Alicia getting back their creature right away. Okay, so we got our wish. We're still alive. We get to play a land, trigger Hydra. And then double Ordeal is going to be the move. Attack. Get 2 counters. Sacrifice, get 2 lands. And this should be more than enough. This is glorious. 135, 135. And there we have it. So yeah, sometimes you just gotta go for it and hope for the best. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand seems functional. Can probably afford to hang on to Fabled Passage since we have Bristly Bill. Although I could see playing 1 on turn 1 in case we end up picking up another 1 or 3 drop just so we can curve out smoothly. Opponent on red with turn 1 hero. So we've got our work cut out for us. Ooh, nice Hydra. So before drawing Hydra, I would have been tempted to maybe wait on Bill until we maybe get the talent or Ozolith going, so we can immediately make it big enough to survive a burn spell. Now that we drew Hydra, I kind of like... well, it's actually still close. Because Bill could maybe soak up removal that would otherwise take out Hydra, but if we get, let's say, an Ozolith going, then Hydra immediately could be large enough to survive some smaller removal. I think it's still Bill on 2. Opponent's got a Hunter's Talent. So yeah, that's actually good enough here, taking out Bill thanks to the Valiant trigger. Okay, so we'll give Hydra shots. And hope they don't have a second answer. And then I want to go Ozolith first, and then Innkeeper's Talent. Opponent's got their own Innkeeper's Talent. That's fine. This is a race we can win. And a Snakeskin Veil is probably not going to be necessary. So... actually, let's think about this, because I could Snakeskin Veil before playing the land, so we get even more counters out of the landfall. That might actually be worth it. Is it enough for lethal? I guess I should do the math here just to be sure. So if I Veil now, we go up to 3 counters, thanks to Ozolith. Play a land up to 7, since it's +1. Fetch, and then up to 15. And then I can still play Elves as a chump blocker. Yeah, that's gonna be good enough. Because then we can chump the Heartfire hero without taking it out. And then red-green's gonna struggle to deal with a huge Hydra. Our opponent could level up talent all the way to double their counters, but that's fine. And levels up the Hunter's Talent instead. So now they can trample. If they also have a Sellsword, we could die maybe. But either way, I'll chump. So yeah, you don't need much for Hydra to become enormous. And also shows the importance of Fabled Passage, even though it can sometimes be awkward entering tapped. So Innkeeper's Talent triggers, opponent passes, and then may as well maximize our damage here. Play Talent, activate Ozolith on Hydra, and smash. Since our opponent could technically still have a couple pump spells, and then soak up the Hydra attack to survive. So it isn't strictly overkill. Activate Ozolith. Can level up the Talent or play Recruit, doesn't matter. And hit you for 19 trample. So a little bit of damage to spare. Alright, so we got to see our +1 counter deck in action, and our Hydra was definitely the star of the show, especially when we got to play it turn 2 of Llanowar Elves. But of course it is a deck that's pretty weak in the face of lots of interaction when we don't draw our Snakeskin Veil, and some aggressive decks in the format like Mono Red and the Aura deck can potentially outrace us if we don't have one of our better draws, and we don't have much interaction to really mess with the opponent's game plan either. So it's not a perfect deck, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for the ranked ladder, but if you're just looking to make large Hydras as quickly as possible, this is not a bad way to do it. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.